Hi, everyone. We are going to give it just a couple more minutes to let others join in and we'll get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get things moving here. So good afternoon, all of you, and I'd like to thank you all for joining today. This is Retain Ohio, February's employer webinar. And my name is Dina Zidian, and I am your referral and enrollment supervisor for Retain Ohio. Today we'll be talking about developing apprenticeship program. I have special guest Montez King from NIMS and also Brandy Porter. She is from the Supply Chain Automation Workforce Hub and Apprenticeship USA.
Hello.
We do have a couple. Oops, hi. and we do have a couple of housekeeping items real quick to go over. Everyone is welcome to use the chat at this time. If you would like to put your name, the organization, and your role into the chat, I would appreciate that. The slide deck for today's presentation will be available to you, and I will email that out to everyone. There will also be a link for our YouTube channel in that email, and you can access past webinars and our past podcasts as well when you join that YouTube channel. And from there, I'm going to stop sharing and let Montez take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone, and good morning if you're in a different time zone than Eastern. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Well, let's have everyone on board with the webinar. Yeah, we'll talk about apprenticeships today, but not necessarily getting it registered. That is actually the easy part about getting your apprenticeship. The most challenging and most important piece is how do you actually integrate it into the natural flow of your workplace? If you were to ask anyone on this call what you actually do, if you're not an educator, by the way, if you're a company on this call and you say, what do you do at your company? You're not likely going to say, I train people. You're going to say, I make something, I provide a service, we do this, we do that. So training really is a part of your business that is required to be sustainable, but it's not actually what you do. So anytime you're incorporating training into your business, it has to be integrated within your natural flow. So that's what we'll talk about today. Now, if there's questions about how to get registered, we have partners that can help you get that. You can do that as well. Or if you just want to have an informal apprenticeship, you can do that as well. But we'll be happy to answer any questions or refer you for those types of questions. Okay, so we're going to talk about Smart Training Solutions, or STS. You'll hear me say it both ways. Mostly you'll hear STS. I'm Montez King, the Executive Director of NIMS. And let's talk a little bit about what NIMS stands for. People ask that question, just NIMS. We are a nonprofit. We were formed to develop and maintain a globally competitive American workforce. And what we do is we help organizations improve skills transfer in the natural flow of work. And we recognize stakeholders for their success. So when we say skills transfer, it's more like peer-to-peer when you're in the workplace. How do you transfer skills from your stellar people to your not yet stellar people? And then when those competencies are met, how do we recognize those stakeholders for their success? So that's pretty much what we do at NIMS. All right, let's get that out of here. So we've been in business for 30 years. We serve about 500 plus organizations across the U.S. And this is just a little map to show where we are in the country. You can see we're trying to migrate over to the West Coast, but we got started on the East Coast. Right. Our initial business is always been about developing industry standards. And our sustainability model initially was only credentials. Now we do other services to help organizations train. But when it comes to our credentials, we use credentials to validate individuals against the standards that we develop. Most of our credentials are approved by state or federal funding. So really good to incorporate industry credentials within your training. All right. We'd like to give people the STS experience. We're going to give this a try. We're going to play a video, and there won't be a lot of interaction. I'm just going to talk about the video afterwards, but it's inspirational. It's a commercial that we pushed out. You'll have some latency because we're going online, so the sound might not align completely, but I really would like you to have the experience of what we do at NIMS, and the experience that we're going to focus on the employee experience today. We have the employer experience as well. It's a win-win for both. So let's see. Okay, so in that video, we'll fly it away. We'll talk about visualizing training, but in that video, maybe you noticed that you have an individual who's working hard. They have great attention to detail for the job they're doing, but they're working in a low-paying job delivering food. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but in his head, he's got all of these bills. He needs to make more money. He's got a lot of problems, but despite having all those troubles, he's focused on doing a good job. Goes into a company that has confidence in their training program. They're looking for people. And so noticing that this individual was seeking a job, saw the job opening, the company says, hey, you should apply. You should come and work for us. We have a great plan, etc. But they're not hesitant of hiring someone with no skills in what they're doing, or very little skills, because they know they can bring them in and in a short period of time get them from 0 to 1 very quickly. And that takes confidence in what you're doing. So that's the experience from, well, one, the employer's getting a win because they're getting people. That's what they need to operate, people. And the employees getting a win because they're getting some skills and now they can earn more money. So when you're integrating apprenticeship into your programs, you can get it to that level of optimization. We just have to help you integrate it into your natural flow of work. So next, we're going to just make sure we're still sharing. I think I lost the share there. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to visualize training. Okay, so there are 4 levels of training maturity. Anytime you want to integrate training into your natural flow of work, you need to really understand where you are within your existing training. And so we help people visualize by breaking it down into 4 levels. Level 1 is, we call it osmosis. And then you go to level 4. Now, the key here is all levels of training maturity are required in any training program. The problem is if you are dependent on those lower levels only. So we'll talk about the definitions and the outcomes of each level. So when we look at osmosis, it really is, as stated, learning by osmosis is simply exposure to an environment. It's really putting people on the floor and saying, charging someone and say, hey, train me. This is how most companies train. So by that exposure, your employees should possess the skills and knowledge over time. The problem with it is it leaves skills and knowledge attainment goes left with time and chance. So if you can't leave training to time and chance, and you really got to get it more organized, let's go to structure. It's a different type of training. With structure, you're training with clear goals and timelines, policies, and you have some level of recognition in it. Certification, qualifications when the training is done. But even that structure is systematic, but it can vary in effectiveness. So if we have 10 companies on this webinar today, you could all have the same structure within your companies and still have different results. So it's more practical. If you set your goals, you're going to need some methods within your organizations to regulate the outcomes. And that's where you get to level 3. So level 3 is training with methods to regulate outcomes. So you're going to still have that systematic training, but you'll have those quality control processes to ensure the effectiveness. So it doesn't matter if it's structured if you don't have any good methods to regulate. And now we get to level 4. This is where you're trained. This is training that integrates into your natural flow of work. So now you have systematic and effective training with minimum disruptions to production. Remember what we said earlier. If you were to ask any company what they do, outside of being an educational institute, you're not going to say, I train people, or you're going to say, I make something, I provide a service, etc. So any training that you integrate into your company, or any training that you adopt, has to have minimum disruptions to your production. And so now you're getting into what we do at NIMS, how we enhance the training for different organizations. Okay. All right, let's shatter that, and let's really look at optimized training. How do we actually do it? Now, this webinar is not going to be a demo of our environment and our platforms. It's more to give you the concepts and the principles behind how we do it. And I'm going to go behind the curtains and show you that. It's all about workplace replications. We actually take your floor. Your floor could be anything that's considered your floor, whatever business you're in. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where you actually, if you're in the field, you're doing HVAC, well, someone has to be able to do that work. I need to replicate what's happening right there at that level, on the machine, on the line, in the field, wherever it is. That's what we call the floor. So we replicate that. We call it, it's a virtual replication that we create. And let's go into the framework here. So we use a dynamic framework that can replicate any workflow. Now, in this workflow, here's something that's very interesting. Any company that you run across will have this same standards framework. Doesn't matter what business you're in, doesn't matter industry, the type of business, whether you're a manufacturer, you're in healthcare, it doesn't matter. It is the same framework. The difference between from one company to the next is how well it's documented. So let's look at job roles. This might be related more to you for job descriptions, but we call them job roles, but it's the same thing. It's identifying your duties, which break down into your responsibilities. Before you can train anyone, you have to know what they're responsible for before you can provide any training. For many different reasons, you got to identify what people are responsible for. Now, from those job roles, you have the performance itself. So what are the actual workplace activities that demand these duties, that require these responsibilities? So there could be many types of activities out there depending on what you do. Now, those activities are broken down into what we call tasks. Some people may say competencies, but it's really two. It's tasks and then it's competencies. It's a task when it's something that you have to perform. It becomes a competency for you when you're capable of performing it. So we identify it as both, but it's really broken down into two components. Now, from the task, the most tribal level of these standards, this standards framework, is instructional strategy. If someone on your floor who is experienced is teaching someone who's not experienced, what will the trainer or instructor, whatever you call them, what will the trainer talk about during that task? What will they show? What will they talk about? And what's acceptable? Your experienced people usually know this. Your inexperienced people do not know these things. And so to be consistent with your training from one person, one worker to the next, this needs to be identified and usually is never identified. It's what we call tribal knowledge. It's always in someone's head rather than being documented. And then the other piece is performance. You can be competent in the job, but not perform well. I mean, we just had the Super Bowl this last Sunday, and if you were a Patriots fan, you might not perform as well. You might have a Super Bowl flu on the Monday, so you're not performing as well as you're capable of performing. So key performance indicators go beyond the competence. It's looking at your speed, your quantity, spoilers depending on your business. It can look at teamwork and attitude, and communication. It's all part of your training. It's just broken down into these levels. Okay, so now we said every company follows this. This is a law out there. We all follow this. Again, it's just whether we have it documented or not. Now, there's another piece to it. It's called workflow architectures. Every company has different workflows using the same standards framework. Doesn't matter. You can have two companies that are in the same industry, but their workflows can be different. It's what makes them who they are. So part of replication is also understanding and designing or establishing your standards based on your architecture. I'm just gonna breeze through this. We won't go do a deep dive in it. But I did want everyone in the webinar to know that architecture is one of the most important pieces of establishing your standards. No training should take place unless you have the standards. So here, I'm just going to breeze through. This is just an example of an architecture for a company, for some companies where they have the job role up top and they're training by equipment. And then from that PM stands for just performance measures. They may have different types of performance measures for the same role, and they may have they may break their activities down into products. So I'm training by equipment and product in this scenario. Here, I'm training by a certain process, and I'm categorizing the processes. Here, I'm training by a product line and product. Here, I'm training by a service I provide and my duties. Here, I'm training by certain levels. Pay scales, having certain levels may justify certain pay scales. And then I have processes within the level. This can be infinite. You can have many different architectures. Here, I've got product line and certification. So this was actually one of our customers GE Aerospace had this architecture, has this. They have certifications that you have to, like, I gotta be certified in welding. I have to be certified in brazing. And so I'm certified in these different processes. And then now that you know how to weld, here are all the different product lines I want to train you in to make sure you can weld these different products. So that's a different architecture, doing a combination. Here's another combination. Maybe I have to learn certain software and applications, and I categorize that in my processes, and I provide a service. Maybe you're in healthcare. Maybe you're in uh, a cleaning service. So this is, again, just by process and services. The key here is replicating whatever it is, whatever your workflow is, we have to create a replication of that. And remember, every company has a different workflow using the same standards framework. And the other piece, if I were quizzing you, I would come back and ask, what's the main dysfunction we usually find within every company that uses the same framework? It's how well they've documented those standards. All right, let's fly it out of there and talk about personnel. Personnel is also part of your replication. So now that you've established your standards, you've identified what those standards are across your workflow. Now you have to figure out, well, who can do what? Because I may be able to do something, but I can't do that. And someone else can do that, but they can't do this. So we have to take inventory. Just identifying, since we're talking about training and apprenticeships, just identifying some of the roles. Big companies, they departmentalize these roles, or one person's administrator. You have someone who's responsible for developing the trainer. You got trainers, trainees, evaluators. They all think differently. That's why you see we have those different speeds on the rotations there. They all think differently, different roles. But for smaller companies, you may have one person not do everything. I'm the administrator, I'm the developer, I'm the trainer, I'm the trainee, I'm the evaluator. Doesn't matter if one person does it all, or you're separating those roles out by different people. It doesn't matter. You still have to take your inventory. So let's get into just a quick way of showing how it works. So in inventory, you can see down the bottom, you have your trainer, trainee, trainer, evaluator, certifier, someone who's just certified, administrator. Let's look. PM stands for the performance measure. If you have a certain performance measure, someone might be just a trainee. They came in 0 to 1 like Reggie from that first video. You may have someone in the business that's certified. They can do the work. They know how to do the work. They've been there for years. You may have someone who is certified and they're a good communicator, really good at teaching others, or you've taught them this. They have the knowledge requirements, but they've got good traits, and so now they're trainers. And then you may have a supervisor who's certified they've been with the company for a while, they're certified, but they're the evaluator. They're going to make sure after the training they can actually do the job. And then you might have someone, like say, all in one. I'm the certified person, I'm the trainer, I'm the evaluator, I'm everything. And I'm even an administrator. So we'll wrap that around with that black outline, and they're an administrator. So this is a real quick way we do inventory to know what people can do. Now, once you know what people can do, now it's like, how can I use that replication? We've created these, we've established all of our standards. It's all written down. It's done in a dynamic way. We've taken our inventory. So what can we actually do with this replication? That's like saying my apprenticeship is ready to go. What can I do? Okay, let's take a look at that. All right, so how can I use my replication? Now it depends on how sophisticated you want to be with it. It can just simply be a source. Simply use the replication as a source to comply with the standards. So I'm going to use that osmosis level. We just put people on the floor and, I'm going to charge Sally to teach Sue. And you can always refer to these standards to make sure that you're training consistently. You could just use it that way. But then you said, okay, well, I like it as a source because that keeps everybody in line with the standards. But man, I really would like to keep track of where they are in the process, because it's not like they're going to learn everything in one day. Maybe it takes 3 months, a year, 2 years. Usually apprenticeships, the minimum is 1 year for a registered apprenticeship. So they're going to progressively attain competencies throughout. So now you can keep track of what they've learned as they go along. You can even use it for a detection method, right? You can say, okay, if I have an apprenticeship or some type of training, establish a standard for my training, and I need to teach them a certain skill that's not always on the floor, it's not active. You can detect when it's active to let you know when you have an opportunity to train someone on a decision that you've made, but what you want them to learn. And then, of course, you can use it for report purposes. You can say, you can identify who knows what and where we need to go. All types of information can come from reports. So those are 4 different key ways that you can use your replication. Now, I'm just going to do this little exercise here. You're going to see something come out of that right side of your screen. This is what it means to work in a natural flow. You see these activities coming across your chest. This is like just running your business. Do what you normally do. Remember, everything has to be, training has to be in a natural flow. So we want you to flow. We got Brandy on the call here. We didn't introduce her, but I would have her do a dance and show you how what natural flow means if we had more time. But it's just natural flow. It's going around. Now, while you're working with your replication, you can determine if we need to train. Because if there's an activity that you've proactively made a decision on to train, as your work is flowing through the company, you can identify when you need to train. Or now, because you have your standards, you'll know what those standards are for that training that you've proactively made a decision. You'll know who needs the training because remember, we took inventory. So now we know who needs training within your organization. So we see an opportunity to training, it's out there on the floor. We know the standards, and now we know who needs to be trained. We can even look at what is the progress of the trainees. Remember, they can't learn everything in one day, especially in apprenticeship type training. It takes time. So now as they're learning, if you see an opportunity, you can see from the previous opportunities how much they learn and what their actual skills are. All this with your replication. You can see who can train towards these standards. Okay, you got an opportunity to train. There's something on the floor, you need training. You know who needs the training, you know where they are. Well, you need someone who has the skills that can teach them. So now you know who can train because you know who has been certified. Now you can know who can evaluate towards these standards because if you don't trust your trainers are doing, maybe you want to have some accountability on your trainers, so you want the supervisor to look and say, okay, they've been trained, they've been signed off, now I'm going to measure it. And that might not be competence, might be just simply performance. Remember those KPIs. Competence and performance are 2 separate things. You can be competent, but you're not performing your job well. All right. So tracking. But I was just, talking about, just help you visualize what it means to train in active flow and how it all works. But there are ways of tracking your competencies, and it's simply by identifying those tasks that they can perform. You can put those 3 legs on it. You can get the trainer and trainee to look at it. You can get the evaluator to look at the actual performance or the actual task itself. But remember, competence and performance are 2 different things. You can also track your time. In many scenarios or apprenticeship programs, time is important to the apprenticeship. So you can track that either live, you can track that by logging. So, saying what happened in the past, and you can also schedule it out. You don't have to do anything. Say this is what the hours are going to be, and it can track for you automatically. So time usually is very important in the apprenticeship programs as well as competence. All right, we're almost through it. So like I said, reporting is pretty simple. This is a quick slide here, just showing you many things you can track. The duration, if it's a 2-year, 1-year apprenticeship, however your training duration is, you can track that. You can track that. You can kind of wipe out all the biases of training by identifying the opportunities that people have been given to train towards apprenticeship. You can have 2 people going through the apprenticeship. One looks great, they're doing everything, and the other one doesn't look that great. They don't look well at all. I mean, they're not performing. but is it because they can't do the job, or is it because of opportunity? So you can eliminate those biases by tracking opportunities. Of course, time and duration are two different things. If you say your duration is 1 year, but you got to have so many hours within the training, it doesn't mean you put the time in. The duration is just the duration, but you could have been doing deliveries that's not a part of the apprenticeship because of company circumstances. So you're not tracking time in those circumstances. So they're two different things. And then you've got competence. We've discussed that. Can you do the job? And performance is how well you do that. All right. It's all about your ROI, or return on your investment. So you want to be able to report out to know that that's happening. Okay, so now we're coming down to the end here. We've got tracking and reporting. So we talked about establishing the standards, but you got to keep this in mind. You can't pull out a Word document or PDF to establish these standards, because that doesn't keep up with the evolving changes in production demands. Things change all the time. So you don't want to solve a problem and create a problem at the same time. So you got to have good tools. Now, usually if you look at many companies that are out here doing with training programs, they're using PDF hard copies, or they're using spreadsheets. This is always a no-no. There's many different reasons why. We don't have a lot of time to go into that, but there is a solution. We use our proactive technology to replace the spreadsheets. We use a dynamic standard structure that's connected to it, so that all of your standards can keep up with the pace of change. So if you establish them and you make a change, it identifies, everything's connected, and it identifies or takes inventory of what needs to be updated. So it's very slick and easy to maintain. Just want to show you how that works. We do provide a cloud of standards. You're not writing standards all on your own, especially with AI today. We can provide standards much faster than we had in the past. But we have a cloud that sits out there with many different standards, many different disciplines, and we push those out to anyone with an account. We create a bridge between the educators and the employers. Not sure if you'll be able to hear this, but our goal is to celebrate in this bridge. So got some fireworks here. It's not the first, not New Year's, but it's close. I'll let it whistle, then I'll stop. There we go. All right. Okay, we come down to our last slide here. We want you to schedule a demo. You don't have to do it today, but if you wanted to, you can schedule a demo whenever you want to learn more about how we integrate training into your natural flow, whether it's an apprenticeship or it's not an apprenticeship, you're just trying to upskill, it doesn't matter. We work with both. You can visit us at myststech.org. And in the demo, we'd actually show you inside the environment, show you how easy it is. We hope to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Dina for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Montez. That was awesome. Very good presentation. Appreciate that. And if anyone has any questions, you can now go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. If you do think of something you might want to talk about later, you can go ahead and email us, and I will be sending out the email, as I said earlier, with the copy of the presentation so you can review it again. So I just wanted to say real quick, thank you to everyone from Retain Ohio, to all our employer participants. It's been a pleasure working with you. We couldn't have done it without your support. And if you do have any questions and you would like to reach out to me, this is my contact information. And if no one has any questions, we'll wrap it up. And thank you for joining us today. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Bye, everybody.